Hey there, fabulous performers. Welcome back to Casting Actors Cast, the podcast that helps you navigate the wild world of auditions with confidence and skill. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach, your casting director, your teacher, and, I don't know, I guess I'm your industry cheerleader here to give you the inside scoop on what really goes down in the audition room. Recently, I had the pleasure and the challenge of sitting behind the table at both Equity Chorus Calls, ECCs for singers and dancers, and Equity Principal Auditions, EPAs. Wow, I did see some fantastic talent, but you know what? I also noticed a few common habits that could be holding performers back from booking the job. So let's break it down. If you want to up your audition game, stay tuned because I'm about to share some audition gold. Today, it's actors. This is the final installment of our 3 installments, dancers, singers, now actors in EPAs. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach, and this is Casting Actors Cast.
Casting Actors Cast, what a show! With Jeffrey Dreisbach, we're ready to go. From agents to gigs, learn what you lack. Tune in every week, we're bringing you back.
We're going to kick off the show right after this. Well, hello, and welcome to today's episode of Casting Actors Cast. I'm casting partner Jeffrey Dreisbach. I'm with the McCorkle Group in New York. How are you? Hope you're having a good day. I'm having a really good day, and I'm really looking forward to the audition portion of an open call, the EPAs, Equity Principal Auditions. But first, this is that moment of the podcast where I simply get to say thank you so much for tuning in to Casting Actors Cast. I invite you to check out the website, castingactorscast, all one word.com. There you're going to find some free stuff if you fill out that form that says dive into the talent pool. I'm excited that my book is doing pretty well. It's called Jeff's Jots, the Actor's Career Playbook. There's a link right there on the website. Plus, there's Jeff's Jots, the blog. It's a weekly blog that corresponds to each of the corresponding episodes that you hear and see on YouTube and here on the Broadway Podcast Network. So a lot going on there. So do check it out. I'm also getting really excited to start. I'm kind of biting my tongue, but I am excited about an opportunity in New York City for a live broadcast recording of the podcast taking place. It's going to be happening in the spring, so it's not quite there yet. I'm not quite ready to kind of give out the full-blown introductions, but with the help of Actors Connection and the Broadway Podcast Network, it looks like there's going to be a really kind of a cool, fun thing for you to show up. You and I get a chance to meet. Also, there's, again, I can't kind of give it all away, but I hope that you stay tuned for that. I'm excited to share that with you. All right, my shout out to actorsconnection.com. They're just awesome. Do check them out. So let's talk about acting audition tips. But first, I want to set up the scenario of what takes place in an EPA, Equity Principal Audition for Actors. So this was for Barrington Stage Company doing their entire season. So there are several roles that we are casting. And so the breakdown went out. That breakdown went out through Actors Access, Breakdown Services, and also some other outlets so that equity actors could then go ahead and they can do this online by signing up for an audition. And then they come to what's called the holding room, where there is an equity monitor who checks those actors in. Then each actor has 1 minute to come into the audition space, and we requested a 1-minute monologue. So it's really a matter of just coming in, doing the monologue, and then exiting. A resume is given to us in advance, so we can look at your resume, we can see your picture, as well as experience you acting. And that all happens in a 1-minute period of time. It feels crazy because you have to sort of get into the rhythm of that because it's awfully fast, right? And so I've got some tips and some suggestions that hopefully are going to ease that kind of nervous hyperness that is experienced by both performers as well as those sitting behind the table. So those are the audition tips that we're going to be setting up. So we'll talk everything from a material to what you're going to be wearing and, that kind of thing we're going to go through. Plus, I've got some tips. So if you're a singer or you're a dancer and you've enjoyed these past two podcasts, this is no different. And if you're an actor, I think you're going to find some useful tips here. But I think that there's information that is valuable in all of those arenas, those ECCs as well as the EPAs. All right, let's first jump in and talk about clothing. So my advice about clothing is to dress smartly but comfortably. That's it. Wear something that reflects the essence of the role without going into full costume mode. That is such a turnoff. If it's a period piece, a slight nod to the era in your clothing can help, but please, please, please don't overdo it. Above all, I think you should make sure that your outfit allows movement and it really just doesn't distract from your performance. I think that there's, in my experience with these EPAs, I think some performers think that they have to wear something a little edgy, a little out there, a little kind of out of the norm, thinking that that's going to actually help them get remembered. You know what? That doesn't happen. It doesn't. What happens is the experience of your acting gets remembered. Combine that with your picture looking like you. And I've said this in the past two episodes as well, but it has to look like you. I don't find it unusual at all to see actors wearing the same clothing in their picture that they're actually wearing in their audition. If you want some help on that, I've got plenty of past episodes in the archives talking about the actor's wardrobe. I suggest you check that out. Now let's talk about that 1 minute monologue. I think this is something that freaks out a lot of people because it's about the kind of monologue and choosing the right monologue. I think it's important to match the show's style and the period, right? I mean, you get that. Your monologue should feel like it belongs in the same world as the show you're auditioning for. A classical monologue for a contemporary play? Probably really not the best choice. Look for something that aligns with the tone and the style and the energy of the production as you see it. You might get that information about the style of the production through breakdown. So make sure that you scrutinize all of the information about that production as much as possible, and then find the material that really does work for that role that you're looking for. Now, here's the other thing, especially this EPA for Barrington Stage, we were looking for several roles. So then it became up to the actors to make a decision about how the role they are most interested in, but they also want to be available for more than one role. Well, that's just something that your creative energy can decide. If it's a larger role and it's kind of got a heightened language quality to it, that would be the material. The association of that with material that is similar to that production piece is a really good idea. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Let's move on from there. Nervousness. I want you to own it. Please don't fight nerves. They are natural. They are part of the human condition. They don't control you, and they don't have to control you. You need to take some kind of control back when you're feeling nervous. Again, nervousness is something that I like to see on occasion because it's showing me that this is important to you. But being able to stay and obtain some level of control over those nerves, that's important too. Take a deep breath before you start. I want you to plant your feet. I want you to give yourself a moment before you begin. Listen, if your hands are shaking, just don't try to hide it. I would suggest trying to channel it into the scene, into the character you're playing, if possible. If not, that's okay. Don't let that be something that you are overly conscious of or aware of. In my experience, confidence simply grows with experience. That's my experience. So don't expect more of yourself than what is just right there in that moment. It's really, really okay. I need you to kind of make moments. Don't make more nerves. That would be a great little t-shirt. All right, let's talk about this pacing. Now, I hated this note when I was an actor, and I don't want to give this note now, but I don't know how to tell actors to slow down. Because the actors know that they only have 1 minute to get through this audition, they often rush through their monologues because they're afraid of taking too much time. It's as if the time is more important than the moments. But when you speed through, you lose nuance, you lose clarity, and you lose opportunities for really interesting moments. So take your time, use pauses, give the words room to breathe. Let me see the emotional connection you're making with that character. That is such a useful tool for us to see because it speaks to your technique as an actor. It's not about you coming in saying, I've got to get through this just to let him see what I can do. That's not the right attitude at all. It's an opportunity to perform. You're an actor. Embrace an opportunity to perform. All right, next, moving on from there, positioning in the room. I think that there's a sweet spot for actors in terms of where they stand in the room. And here's my suggestion. You see the back wall, and then you see the table where the casting team is sitting, or the creatives are sitting. Right between the back wall and the table, boom, that's your spot. If you're standing halfway between those two things, it's the perfect placement for you, because being too close and you might feel like you're invading our space. And then, of course, too far, you become distant. The right positioning helps with presence and with connection. To sit or not sit. I think sitting can work, but here's a cautionary tale. Sitting often limits your energy, and of course, it restricts your movement. So unless the piece absolutely calls for it, standing keeps your performance dynamic and engaging. I prefer it. I also think that I've seen monologues where the character starts from a sitting position and then moves to a standing position. I think that that's fine. As long as it's organic, I know that word, but as long as it's truthful, authentic, as long as it makes sense and not an arbitrary choice, I think there's value in that as well. Going from standing to sitting could also be useful, but again, it has to come from the character, not from a direction you were given to keep it interesting. Moving on from there, readable resumes. I promise you less is more. A cluttered resume with tiny fonts and too much information, I promise you that just is overwhelming. I don't have a lot of time to watch you and read your resume at the same time. So please keep it clean, easy to read, and of course, relevant to the job at hand. I am still, I can't believe I have to say this. It's true. I'm still getting resumes where the actor has handwritten in their latest thing or handwritten a little note to casting. If you're a local hire, for example, you don't need to write local hire. You could certainly do that when you say hello and coming into the room. That's fine. That works. Let me make that note. Please don't feel you have to embellish with little hearts and smiley faces. I still get that. And for those actors of a certain age who have just done a ton of work, now is the time to scrutinize that resume. You know what? Have you thought about having a few different resumes? One that is appropriate for that particular kind of style of production, if that makes sense? Or, you've got your Shakespeare in one resume and you've got your contemporary work on another. Those are all things that are at least worth considering. So anyway, you want to make sure that it's easy to scan in terms of me being able to see the salient points. Ooh, good word. while I'm also simultaneously watching your work. I need to make that association. I'll tell you, I often quickly just look at the theaters that you've worked at or the film or television projects that you've been on. I don't really spend as much time on the role, but I will when I have more time. But in that EPA, boom, I'm looking at the theaters and maybe who you worked with. Those are more important to me as I scan it. Now, other casting people might say something different. That's just my approach. We're going to continue the conversation right after this. Are you wishing for acting success? Are you ready with audition techniques for theater, film, and television? Are you ready with proven methods for growing your talent? Are you ready to boost your business? It would help if you had a playbook to guide you. Now, there's Jeff's Jots, the Actor's Career Playbook by Jeffrey Dreisbach. Jeff's Jots at Amazon.com, CastingActorsCast.com, available in paperback, hardcover, or ebook. Stop wishing and start doing with Jeff's Jots, the Actor's Career Playbook. All right, let's move on from there. And this is a biggie. And I am so surprised that I have to say this. Exiting the room too quickly. You've done your audition. I've literally seen the actor say the last word and then turn and walk out. They've never thought about creating that last beat, that last moment. So I don't want you to make it feel mechanical, like I'm done now and I'm leaving. Some actors, they finish their monologue and then they bolt for the door before we've even processed what just happened. So I want you to take a moment. I want you to hold that presence in that space. You know what? A simple thank you and then an unhurried exit, that just simply shows professionalism and confidence, and it really does make a point. I have to say it this way. I see the lack of emotional investment in these EPAs. It's as if just reciting the monologue, trying to attach some kind of emotion to it, and then exiting quickly. The thought of that benefiting you is absolutely misplaced. Emotional investment. If you find the balance, going too deep into an emotional state can also be hard to stay in control. So you need to make moments, but it cannot be so infused with an emotional state of being, because if you get overwhelmed by the emotion, then it starts to affect your pacing and your clarity or your connections. It's just too much. So think about staying present. Remember, it's a performance. It's not therapy. So you're kind of projecting defeatedness. Is that a word? Let's just make it a word. Defeatedness when you end your monologue and say thank you and exit. It's like you've done that so much now that it's becoming habitual. When working towards being in the moment and making it a fresh opportunity for somebody new to see you in character. That's something to embrace. That's something to celebrate. And it might feel like it's costing more than you have, but that is the job of being an actor. I don't want to see the technique. I want to feel it. Acting is behaving. Let me see how your character behaves. Even in an EPA, that kind of solid, connected work can go a long, long way. So I hope you found this helpful. This ends our 3-part series on the ECCs, EPAs. Doing those auditions can be a lot of fun if you approach it in a positive way. It can also be tedious for those non-equity people that have to wait a long period of time. I promise you, I'm a guy who sees everybody who shows up to audition, right? So please, if that is something that you want to do is get seen and you're not a union member, you can still participate in those auditions. The only thing I say no to is drop-offs. And that means that if an actor wants to have some kind of consideration, but only has the time to drop off a resume, that does not interest me at all. I think that makes sense, right? If you're there to make an effort to show up and want to audition, I make sure that we see non-equities in the slots that are available, of course. So anyway, I hope that this has been helpful. I look forward to working with you, seeing you, talking with you, and sharing this entertainment educational platform called Casting Actors Cast. Thanks so much.
It's been great having you in our talent pool today. Your support means the world to us, so please consider sharing, liking, and reviewing this episode wherever you jump in. I'm Megan Grace Martinez. Thanks.
From monologues to screen tests to